Hello there, lovely people. This is me, Ashley, here, sending my love to you from whatever reality I'm in today to whatever reality you happen to find yourself in. Oh, that all looks a bit weird on the screen there. I seem to be absolutely tiny. I'm not sure why that is, but hopefully I can be heard, and that's the point. Well, today I want to talk about what it means to be affected, because I'm sure we all have seen many, many videos about the Mandela effect that are made by people that aren't actually affected. Some of them can drive you absolutely insane with the ridiculous things that they come up with. Hi, Brian. Hi. Yeah, the thing is that when you go on to, if somebody is actually going to be looking for the Mandela effect, they've just realized that reality is changing, it is a thing, and they go online, and quite a lot of people out there who aren't themselves affected feel the need to make videos about it. And then their explanations are they go from the ridiculous to the even more ridiculous. But yeah, everything looks tiny in this reality. It certainly does here on the screen. But hi, bit of venom, by the way. So the things that they talk about it as if it's a paranormal phenomena that isn't really, if you know what I mean. They talk about it along the lines of ghosts and Bigfoot and as if it's a fairy tale. Now, that's the point. They talk about it either by trying to debunk it, and those people I will never understand. Why on earth would they spend time trying to debunk something that we're actually going through and affected by, and they're not? So I don't understand that. I don't understand that mentality at all. But there are lots and lots of channels out there that talk about the Mandela effect without really understanding what the word affected actually means. We're not affected because somebody said it's affected, and I said, no, it isn't, because we're affected by it. The affect is reality changing, and we are affected by it, which is why it's called the Mandela effect, because people get affected by it. And I certainly am massively. It's every part of my life. No matter, you can try and ignore it, you can't ignore it. It's there in everything that we see, hear, everything that we interact with. It's everything is a Mandela effect. We're being shown it all the time. So people that talk about the Mandela effect, if you're seeing just something like 10 new Mandela effects and it's not by a channel that is actually somebody that's affected by it, you're either getting a very watered down version, because it is a very watered down version at the best, which is not helpful to anybody that's actually trying to get answers, and they need to find our community, not people that talk about it as if it's some kind of, either, like I said, something that needs debunking and isn't real, or in fact it's just a thing. And that's the point, because if like me, you are affected by it, like I said, there isn't anything at any time that isn't a reminder of reality having changed. And it's not, like we keep saying, I mean, don't get me wrong, the changes in titles of films, in lines in films, in all kinds of products, those sort of things, I'm not dismissing them, but they are that's hardly anything. That's hardly anything in the great scheme of the reality changes that we, the affected, actually go through. We have in our face, in real life, in real time, changes within our solid reality, so-called solid reality. It's not something that we can pretend isn't happening to us. God knows most of us have tried, but we can't, because we're constantly getting reminders of it all the time. Changes happening in front of you. It's very difficult when you're with people that aren't affected, because the non-affected, they can be frightened by it, or they're challenged by it that much that they lash out and attack. And I think the people that are debunkers, I mean, if they spend their time doing hit pieces on people, actually bringing them up and not just myself, lots of people, lots of us, that speak openly about how we feel and how. I mean, my channel is all about my own personal way of what I'm going through with it. It's all about me personally. So the fact that people want to disrespect the effect that the Mandela effect is having on me, by calling me a devil worshipper, which is oh, it's the most ridiculous and ludicrous thing I've ever heard. But by doing that, or trying to prove that somehow I'm mad, but mainly the fact that I'm a pagan, devil worshipper, that kind of stuff goes on. And why bother? Why do that? I don't understand how somebody that isn't actually affected by it can possibly spend their time trying to debunk something that has got nothing to do with their own life. It's got nothing to do with their own life. They're not experiencing it, but we are. And the fact that we can't get away from it, no matter whether we want to try or not, try and cut ourselves off to it. For instance, I mean, my hometown next year will be, it's the 750th anniversary of it being a chartered town. Now, a chartered town is where the king gives you a charter to say that you are now able to be a market town. You couldn't just set up a market; you had to be recognised as a town. And for us in for us in England especially, lots of our towns are very, very old, and my own hometown is the 750-year anniversary is next year. Now, we have some extremely old buildings within my town, extremely old buildings, and like we have a pub. I've talked about it before, the White Lion pub, and it's the place where King Charles I, the man who was the chief judge and prosecutor, it wasn't Oliver Cromwell. He was very, very quiet during the whole proceedings. We're all taught it was him. It wasn't him. He was very quiet. He got other people to do his dirty work for him. And one of those people was Bradshaw, Mr. Bradshaw, who came, well, he lived in my hometown. And the White Lion pub is where he served, what it was called then, served his articles, which meant that's where he did most of his work. Because back in history in Britain, we didn't have solicitors and things like we do now. We had, I can't actually think what it's called at the minute. Sessions, the court, it's sessions, I think it was. Assizes, that's what it is, the assizes, where every quarter, I think it is, every 3 months, the judge would say, well, Bradshaw was the lead judge in the signing of the death warrant, the killing of a king, King Charles I. And so we do have a lot of old buildings. Now, the White Lion pub has changed that many times. It's changed. It's not just been renovated. It changes from one day to the next. One day to the next. Now, that pub is over 500 years old, and it changes. And if you look on Google, each time it changes, the new changes are old history. The pictures look exactly the same as what I'm looking at today, rather than what it looked like yesterday. Now, this is my hometown. I know what that pub looks like. I'm aware, I know completely what that pub looks like. Now, when it first changed, the steps going up changed. Now, at first, I mean, this is one of the things that I managed to pretend wasn't happening, or took the download. Oh, okay. Because when you're looking at something, you can see it's not right, but then there it is in front of your eyes, you tend to not process it. And that's what I did an awful lot. But these steps used to be really quite steep. And I know, because many times I've fallen out of that pub and down them steps, up them like a lady at the beginning of the evening and down them on my face. So I know that they're, in my original reality of knowing the place for many, many, many years, until recently it started changing my hometown. Steps were steep, 2 steps, with the bottom one was worn down by the amount of people that had stepped on that step over the centuries. And suddenly they were low and wide. And I saw it, and I managed to not ignore it, but shrug it off, even though I knew they were tall, but suddenly they weren't. But what you do is you see that in front of your eyes. So it's very difficult to, oh, that's reality changing. It didn't. it didn't happen like that for me. I was able to shrug off an awful lot of reality changes. Things like trees outside my husband's house are now in a different configuration. All these things I was able to shrug off. I don't know how. I really don't know how. And then, I mean, obviously, with my once I was shown that, well, in a matter of a week, I think it was, I was shown so many different things that I knew weren't right, like the skull with no eye sockets. I mean, there's just no way I could think, oh, I thought that the skull had no eye sockets, and just that was one of the big things that I couldn't ignore. Plus the Bible change situation and iconography, I could not ignore the Bible iconography changes. Now, this is what gets to me about the people that say that we're devil worshippers and everything. To me, the creation of Adam is one of it's called the creation of Adam, which is the beginning of us all. It's the beginning of us all. It's like, that is what the creation of Adam biblically is one of the most important things ever, isn't it? Let's face it, with creation. And God used to be in the sky, in a blue heaven, surrounded by his angels, pointing his finger down, while Adam reached up to gain the life. And when I saw it with God in a red brain, with his finger pointing directly on par with Adam's, that freaked me out, because that's saying that we're on a par with God. And I couldn't deal with that. And reality started changing for me. And I realized that reality was changing. I didn't realize that, like, buildings and things had changed. I didn't realize that at that point. It hadn't quite hit me yet. But it's a case, I mean, those of you that have followed my story know fine well that I absolutely lost the plot, because reality changing in front of your face isn't something that you can just shrug off. Eventually, because the Mandela effect has a habit of making you see it. Like, when I first came to realize that the earth was flat, I know many of you don't agree with that, and that's fine by me, but I had my proof. And then I was like being trolled by a flat earth, because everything I was seeing and looking at was being shown from above, and it was all flat for miles and miles and miles. And you get the Mandela, I'm like, all right, I see it now. But the Mandela effect will keep doing something until you see it. And yeah, it makes you, you're not able, those of us that are affected by it are not able to ignore it, because we're shown things that we cannot get away from. Like, I don't, Brian, with his whole town's name changed. It changed. My town, like I've said, different buildings change all the time. There were buildings that were kind of run down, but then turned into splendid buildings, like one little Tudor type. Oh, so many things that walking past where the town council building used to be one night, and the next time I walk past it, it's gone without a single thing on the ground. So the Mandela effect will do things to make you see. And it's made me think that, you cannot think, oh, I misremembered the council houses being there. And before me, the one thing that, well, it'll all be documented. Well, there is absolutely no documented evidence online at all about when those were taken down. And believe me, we get to find out everything online about what happens in the town. If anything's being demolished, we get to find out who the demolisher is, how long they're there for, how much it costs, who the developer is, blah, blah, blah. But there isn't a single thing, because in the reality that I'm in at the minute, it never existed. Some people do remember it being there, and then I'll say, well, when was it taken down? Oh, a couple of years ago, because seems to be, or not long ago. That seems to be the way people talk about it when you bring it up. Even people who know it's happening, who see changes themselves, yet they're able to move completely, just run, okay, yeah, that's, I see that change, and now I'm walking away. I'm ignoring it. I can get on with my life, and that's fine. Well, that's the difference between the people that see effect changes that aren't affected. Not everybody that sees changes is affected by it. Some literally run away from it. Some try and debunk it because of their own insecurities. That's what I put it down to. In fact, I pity debunkers, because how miserable must their life be that they're that insecure about their own life that they have to spend time trying to make out that we're misremembering. Now, I can't misremember a whole council building that was there and then wasn't there. I can't put it this way. In the centre of my town, there is an absolutely, it's a beautiful, beautiful building, and it's called North Face, actually. North View, that's what it's called, North View. And it's a big, splendid, splendid Georgian building with a, it's beautiful. And nobody lived in it for about, nobody had ever lived in it while I've been in that town. And I've been in the town for 30 years. So nobody had lived in it at all. And I always wanted to go in it. I could imagine it. I mean, I'm into my steampunk, so, I can imagine myself quite easily prancing around in, like, I'm here in Victorian ages now, living in this beautiful house. And I never got to actually, go in it. But I always wondered why is that building not not inhabited? It's right on the one road that goes through the middle of my town. It's tiny. And I always wondered why it wasn't. And then one day, people were living in it. And it had been derelict like forever the day before. And then suddenly people were living in it. And they clearly had been for some time, because they weren't moving in and everything being higgledy-piggledy and they were, making it better. You could see from the windows looking in. I mean, this is a massive 3-story building. It's beautiful. And they'll have every single level lit up, and you can see in the rooms that they're already decorated. That's people living in that house from one day when it was literally the derelict building that it had been forever, for as long as I could remember being there. And then the next day, it's beautiful and people are living in it. And then it went back to being derelict again. Now, you can't tell me I've misremembered it. You can't tell me I've misremembered it. And that's the point about being affected. Because even by this time, even though I know that it's a reality change, I'm now well aware that it's a reality change. And oh my God, there we go again. But that's other people that you talk to. It's one time it's always been inhabited. The next time you speak to them, it's never been inhabited. What you're talking about? So for ages again, it was derelict again. And then a few weeks ago, bang, there it was, inhabited by that same, obviously the same family, because they've got it's decorated beautifully. It makes me want to knock on the door and go in even more now. And that's being affected. You're seeing physical changes, not just, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's mind-blowing enough seeing turmeric turn into turmeric on, in front of your eyes. I mean, at the moment, I've just said that the Mandela Effect has a way of making you see. At the moment, the thing that it's trolling me with at the moment is macarons. Like I've said before, it's the little things that really piss me off. Not the big, the house is lived in, the house isn't lived in. That's something that is mind-bending. But it's the little things that piss me off. Like, don't tell me, it's macaroons to me. It's the first change my daughter has actually mentioned. And I know that it's a change. She doesn't, and I've never spoken to her about it yet. But I'm now being trolled by macaroons. Well, macarons, as they're now called, on everything I'm seeing. Macarons, macarons, macarons. It's like, okay, I'm seeing it. Thank you very much. Mandela Effect. I can't even look at my Google News feed without seeing frigging macarons. I'm like, I've seen the change now, okay? But then there's other things, really weird things, like a friend of mine. I mean, in my other like life, not not what I do with this channel. I'm an activist, and I met up with a friend of mine, an activist friend of mine, in the middle of the year sometime. And I said to her, "Oh, I'm so glad your face is better," because the last time I'd seen her, she'd got Bell's palsy and one side of her face had slipped. And we had pictures taken because I said, "Don't worry, it's only for me. And, I'm not going to put them online or anything. It's just we're here together today. Don't worry about your face. You're still beautiful." Took some pictures. Anyway, the last time I saw her a few months ago, I said, "Oh, I'm so glad that your face is better again." And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, your Bell's palsy." She said, "I've never had Bell's palsy." Well, the Mandela effect is so weird that, in fact, I've still got the photographs of her with her Bell's palsy, but to her, she's never had it. So that's a friend of mine having an incident. I've had an incident with a friend that never happened. Now, that's happened a few times, but there's a specific incident, and I've got photographic evidence. How can I not be affected by that? That's the difference between this is why being our little fellowship and community means so very much, because without each other, I know fine well that I would have completely and utterly lost the plot if I had to go through all this on my own, which is why in the last 4 years since I found out, I am much calmer than I would never have thought at the beginning of realizing that reality is actually changing in front of my eyes, because I cannot get over the fact that that's how. And once I realized that the Mandela effect had happened, and obviously came online, found Brian, um, and um, and learned all about what the Mandela effect actually was, and that other people were going through it as well. I was on the phone to my husband crying. Everybody thought I'd lost it, and I never thought I'd be here being able to talk so calmly about it, just because I'm not crying, losing the plot, doesn't mean that I'm not affected by it, because you can't be anything other than affected when your whole reality changes before your eyes. So there was that lady. Another thing is, we are all used to our loved ones being different people. And I know, to anybody that, you sound ridiculous if you try and say that to anybody that isn't affected by it. But those of us that are affected by it, we understand what that means. Our loved ones are different from day to day. Sometimes we can barely, recognize their behavior. And they seem to, my standard thing is, I don't remember, I've got a bad memory. Well, it isn't me misremembering. It's other people that aren't affected that don't seem to remember at all what things are. Now, I was a bit concerned about my husband's, he was forgetting things an awful lot. But he forgot something that he really shouldn't have forgotten, because my granddaughter was bought some pre-made plaster of Paris little fairies and a little fairy house. Now, my daughter helped my granddaughter to paint these things, and my daughter actually painted the fairy house, and we were very proud of her, because she was always very clumsy as a child, and wouldn't finish anything, because she was a perfectionist that used to be her own worst critic. So she never finished anything. So we both said, myself and my husband had said, my daughter's 32. We were like, "Oh, that's fantastic. We're so proud of you. Well done. Put your name underneath it." And I said, "Put your age." And my husband said, "No, just put the date, because we'll be able to know what her age is by the date on there." Okay, we said. And that was the conversation. And then anyway, I brought it from my daughter's to my husband's house. And a few days later, my husband said, "What the hell's that on the windowsill?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "That bright thing, what is it on the windowsill?" And I said, "It's Billy's fairy house." What do you mean? I said, "Don't you remember?" He said, "I've never seen it in my life." I said, "What?" I said, and I told him, I went through the whole rigmarole that I've just explained to you about our conversation and about the date being underneath and everything. And he said, no, he didn't recognize it. And I said, "Well, I'm really concerned about you then," because obviously I couldn't say, "Oh my God," I couldn't tell him that. To me, that's just par for the course really now, because we've seen our loved ones that aren't affected come and go, be who we expect them to be, and then be completely not who we expect them to be. and remember things that aren't important, and things that are important that you've shared. I mean, I've shared decades, 30 years, and he doesn't remember the same things as I do, which is really hard. And that's the thing about being affected. You're very alone. You're very alone. Your loved ones will get angry with you for trying to explain things to them. They will get angry with you. And that's hard to live with. So anyway, my husband he went to see my daughter, just incidentally, and my granddaughter was showing him the fairies that she'd painted the day when he originally saw the fairies and the fairy house. And he came back and he said, he said that she'd shown him some fairies. And I said, yeah, you saw them the day that we, that the house was painted, and we congratulated Billy. And he said, I'd never seen them before this morning. And I'm like, what? Now that's my point right there, people. Being affected and having your loved ones not remember things that, well, one happened years ago that you've shared, memories that you've shared, because I've made a video before where I said, memories are the anchor to your soul. Our memories are who we are. And if you've shared your memories with somebody and then suddenly they don't remember those memories, it's really difficult. And then they won't talk about it, and they don't want to talk about it. And the affected, most of us live like that. Most of us live like that, where people really, I do mention the Mandela effect every now and then, and it's accepted. It's only my husband that knows about it. The rest of my family don't, by the way. Do you know what I mean? None of the rest of my family know about it, except for my grandson, because he is. So trying that, being affected, how can we not be affected by that? It's not just we don't believe, because the amount of comments that I've seen that have said, I'm not sure, I don't believe in the Mandela effect, or I do believe in the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect isn't a belief. It isn't a bloody belief. I mean, it's not a belief. It's a knowing. It's a knowing. It's fact. It's everything you've ever been taught on its head, and trying to live a normal life with that going on is very difficult to do, especially when your loved ones, your most treasured people, don't remember the things the same way that you do, get angry with you when they do remember things and they've changed now, and you point that out. They get angry with you. So I'm affected by that. Most of you are affected by that. It's not an easy thing to be Mandela affected. It's an absolute, not a belief. I am fed up of it being called a belief in the Mandela effect. It's not a belief, it's a knowing. We know we've been created. We know it. You can't travel through. We are now on a different world. The map to us has changed so much, so very much. The map is so very different. We see it, other people don't. The non-affected don't see it, but we do. We haven't totally fucking remembered the map. Do you know, we haven't misremembered. How can we have all misremembered South America being directly underneath North America? How can we all have misremembered that? I mean, come on. Come on. It's not a misremembering. It's a changing of reality. And the affected trying to live with that. It's really not easy, especially at first, which is why people that are just coming into the Mandela effect, just finding it, there must be so many people like me where I was seeing changes all over the place, thinking about it without even knowing. I was seeing trees being where, I mentioned this the other night on a live, where my friend was living in a caravan by the river, just a small one, and now there's a massive tree that's at least 70, 100 years old, slap bang where her caravan was. And I saw that years ago and managed to just like, oh, how the hell how did that happen? How was there a tree there when Ratty was there? That's my friend's name, Ratty. That's what she's called. But I still managed to not have it. And the affected wish when it, the Mandela effect makes sure that we see. It makes sure that we see. It gives you things that you cannot ignore. You cannot ignore. We hadn't all misremembered the fact that we thought that there was no bony socket in the eye. Come on. Misremembering, it's like that's the lamest excuse as to why it's not real I've ever heard, because nobody was misremembering bugger all until recently, and suddenly everybody's, and I'm saying this is inverted commas, misremembering en masse. Thousands of us in the last few years, we've all suddenly stopped remembering. I mean, it's just so. I mean, South America moved 3 time zones to the east. That's just incredible. I've just read that on the chat there. It's, if you look at a map of the world now, and it's deformed. I mean, America takes up pretty much half the globe, and South America, I think, is 60 miles off the South Pole ice cap, because we've still got a South Pole ice cap. I mean, at the moment, I've still got a northern ice cap. It's still here with me. It came back, but 60 miles, and yet we called Australia down under. What's that about? That doesn't make any sense at all, does it? So now we've got America and North America pretty much taking up, allegedly, half of the map. It's incredible to see. And it's nothing like those of us who remember South America being under South America used to be long and thin. Now it's wide and shifted with this. I mean, it used to have one little bit of land going between it. Now it's got the bit of land off to the side with massive islands round it. And it's like, we aren't misremembering that. I'm 56. Do you think I've not seen a map of the world before? And another thing, this is another thing that gets to me about the Mandela effect. Since the map started changing that we were aware of, the world seems to be preoccupied with it. There were globes and maps just everywhere, in all kinds of shops, because the Mandela effect feels the need to show you things that you cannot deny. And then when you realize that it is reality changing, and you get the fellowship that we really need, which is each other, because we have to be in contact with other people that understand what we're going through. So, it's not a case of, I'm not going to say if you believe in the Mandela effect, because if you're telling me you believe in the Mandela effect, then it means that you're not affected. You are able to live a life as if it's not happening. And those of us that are affected by it can't, because for a start, put it this way, you can't have a conversation with somebody because they forget it, or you look really weird, right? Because, for instance, my friend, she said it's macaroons and not macarons, and went straight onto Google, and she's just faced with macarons. So she's well aware about the Mandela effect, but she's not affected by it. She just gets on with her life. She did used to blame me for it at first, but it's not my fault. It's really not me. I haven't caused it. But she just making that clear before, they start saying that I'm that much of a devil worshipper, that I started it. They're that ridiculous. They probably come up with that shit next. And so she sees changes. She knows that reality's changing. And she says she thinks it's about end times, which I do. And but she can actually, she hasn't seen buildings appear and disappear. It hasn't done that to her. She's not seen those things, whereas I have. And we were in Primark, and they didn't used to have a fitting room, and now they've got this big fitting room with glowing lights outside going, fitting room. And I went, oh my God, they made it into a fitting room. And she said, it's always been a fitting room. Why have we never been in it then? Why have we never been in it? But to her, it's always been there. That isn't an effect for her, but it very much is for me. So I've like now mentioned this thing that for her's always been there, and I just cannot be. I just said, well, I've never seen it before, and left it there. She left it there, but I know fine well that that is a new. It's new. It wasn't there before. It was nothing to do with my life. So it, the non-affected will not understand, one, how frustrating that is, and two, how many times am I going to be talking about things to people that to them is normal, to me certainly isn't. They weren't there. That fitting room was not there. The people that lived in the house North View in the middle of my town, it was unlived in for many, many years. Then it was lived in, then it wasn't, and then recently it's been back to being lived in again. So I actually mentioned that to my grandson, and I said, look, the house, it hadn't been lived in. I'm not sure whether you remember that or not, but remember now that house is being lived in. Because I know, well, I'm fairly sure, because it doesn't always flip flop back when you want it to, does it? That's the thing. Because if it could, I would definitely get up those big circular iron things in the middle of the floor in my town, explaining what different buildings were, because it's an historic town. And they were beautiful, but then they disappeared and there was no sign of them. And I told my family about them. So I long for them to come back, so I can say, look, there they are. Do you know? But then will they not remember me having said that, because they just think I've had some kind of psychic dream? Because I yeah, better your that's Brian, you're right. Better my fault than yours. You're right, Brian. You're right. Between us, we're the Mandela burglar, aren't we? That's what. And so it's trying to live a life when every people around you can't even have a conversation without things changing, without somebody not recognizing what you're saying, not understanding what you're saying, not remembering the conversation. I've had the same conversation 3 times with the same taxi driver, because he obviously was in a different reality to me, and it was pretty much word for word the conversation. So you cannot, we do not believe in the Mandela effect. We are not the cult of quantum. And as I pointed out before, the cult of quantum is God anyway. Do you think quantum doesn't relate to God? Because I do know some pastors, Mr. Odell, is it? I think, who seems to think that this cult of quantum has nothing to do with God. We're openly saying that we believe that we're created, and we don't even believe it. We don't believe it. We know it. I know I'm created, because reality is changing in front of my face. I can't watch the weather without looking at Britain with the top come off it now. We now have a load of islands at the top of Scotland that never used to be there. There's one massive one that looks like a huge deformed sperm. And it wasn't like that. So I can't even look at the weather, being told what the weather is, without seeing that I'm Mandela affected. In my reality, Manchester used to be underneath Liverpool. Now it's above Liverpool. It messes with your mind, in as much as we're not mental, we're not misremembering, but when reality is no longer actual proper reality, but everybody else around you is still living, and we still have to operate within this ever-changing world, when suddenly macaroons become macarons, and they always have done, when history changes, it's not your history. You haven't misremembered the fact that Hitler had brown eyes. We haven't misremembered that they were really blue, because that was one of the things that we didn't understand about Hitler. There was many, don't get me wrong, everything about Hitler I didn't understand. But how he was so obsessed with blue-eyed, blonde children when he himself was brown-haired and brown-eyed in our reality, that was the point. That's how, that was one of the things that we'd said. And then here in this reality, he's got blue eyes. So even on that level, never mind the big differences in history, the two princes in the tower that were allegedly murdered and never found in British history have been found and disappeared again. Sometimes that they've been found and they were dug up by Charles II after the Reformation, when we had royalty back. King Charles I's son, King Charles II, came back and ruled the country again after Oliver Cromwell died. So we had the Reformation, and he came back, and he buried them in Westminster Abbey. They were found, and he buried them in Westminster Abbey. Now, that flips and flops all over the bloody place. So when I'm saying to people they found, they hadn't found them in my reality, it's a bit like the Limburg baby, isn't it? I think it's a bit like that, isn't it? Because in my reality, they never found the baby. In one reality, they have found the baby, but I don't know whether that's flipped about or not. You have, in some ways, we appear to be being taken to the very place that it says in, like, the Bible, that we will be on another world, which we already know we are on another world. We are not on the world that our original reality of Sicily not being like an inch away from Italy, from South America actually being in South America, not in the bloody East. It's more East. Why is it called South America when most of it's in the East now? It's that fat. We can't just pretend. We try. And being affected by reality changes is not a laughing matter. It's not something we choose. It happens to us. And we have to try and live a normal life in the normal world, I say in inverted commas again. And let's face it, we're being taken to ever more shit worlds whenever we move anywhere. And we're moving at rapid speeds at the moment. It is really, really hoiking up. Really hoiking up. So this is what annoys me so much about being called, a devil worshipper by somebody that hasn't got a clue what they're talking about. And it's all because of their own insecurities. And what gets to me is that these people are like worried about, especially with like Bible changes that more often than not, they can't quote, or indeed in the case of one particular, which I mentioned him earlier, pastor, actually corrected his own Bible live on air because he could see what the word really said in his Bible now because his Bible changed. But he, from what I can tell, is still denying it. Now, I find that awful, because he's now misleading people. People say that we're misleading people. I'm not misleading anybody. Brian isn't misleading anybody. Truth Seeker 69 isn't misleading anybody. Nobody in the Mandela Effect community, and thank God we have each other. It is a community. It's a fellowship. You mean everything to me. Within that community, we have to be able to speak to each other openly. We're not trying to see. This is the thing that pisses me off. I'm not trying to convert anybody. I'm not trying to prove it to anybody that it's real. I gave up on that years ago. There's no point in trying to prove it to people. They'll either see it for themselves or they won't. That's where I'm at the moment. But all we do is put out Mandela effects. I do it on a personal level. It's about the things that I see and experience personally. Other people, other channels will show you updated things, will show you how, not how it works, because none of us know how it works, but they will show you evidence, residue that these so-called debunkers seem to fail to see. I don't know why. You can actually show it them and they still aren't seeing it. It's beyond me. It's beyond me what they're doing with that. You can show them the evidence, you can show them the residue, because residue is there. For instance, it's a weird one, and this is one of those times I really wish I had a laptop so I could actually, mind you, I'd never be able to bring anything up to see it anyway. I'm a complete technophobe. But in Media City, in where I am now in my own home. I'm not at my hometown. It's the Television and Science Media Museum in the town that I'm in at the minute, and they had they have old children's puppets and things from my childhood. Now, one of them was the Wombles. Anybody from Britain understands the Wombles. The Wombles of Wimbledon Common. They're little furry characters, and they all had their own name, and they lived underground, and they pick up the litter, or trash, as you Americans say, and make things out of it. And I saw the original Wombles from the program, and they were tiny. They were tiny little things. I mean, they were about 3 or 4 inches. They were that small, that this television program was made of, animated with these tiny things. Anyway, I went back to the museum with my grandson, and the original Wombles were in a set. In the set, their little home underground. Now, that disappeared. But in another part of Media City, they showed me the Wombles, and I think they had 4 of them, and they were about 8 inches high, and there was no set. There was no set. They weren't at home. It was just individual ones, not the Wombles, the original Wombles that I originally saw, right? No sign of them in reality. But on my phone, in my pictures, because I still had it on Facebook, I posted that to Facebook. It's still there. The picture of the Wombles is still there on my Facebook. So I can get it from, I screenshotted it and put it on my phone. In fact, I posted it up to the community post thing on YouTube, because I had the residue. So regardless of what they're showing in this reality, I've got my old reality still on a picture, and yet other pictures have completely disappeared out of my phone, but they are still online. Now, this is something else that I've noticed. Online, we are able to communicate with each other across the realities. So I think it's time that we started to think about what's social media, what the internet actually is, because it's interdimensional. The internet is interdimensional. There's no getting away from that fact, because we are able, even though we know that we're not in the same reality at the same time, we are able quite easily to show each other exactly what reality that we're in at any given minute. Live now, we could do it and prove that we all have a completely different reality just by using Google. Because surely, I mean, people say, oh, that's just the internet. It's just the internet. Surely the internet should be saying to everybody, the fallopian tubes bend downwards. Not next time you go on Google, the fallopian tubes, and you can see them on all kinds of medical, medical, because I go to the NHS myself, because it's like, that's where I go. And in all medical diagrams, suddenly the fallopian tubes are upwards. Now, why would Google be giving you different information from the information it gave you yesterday? Or in fact, I use the fallopian tube because some girls that I know, I was talking about the Mandela Effect to them, and I said, because I said to one of them, the fallopian tubes is an easy one. Go and have a look at it. So we went and had a look, and they were actually pointing upwards. And she went, "Oh my God, that's not right. The fallopian tubes are pointing upwards. That's not right." And I said, "I know it isn't, love, but it's on Google, isn't it?" And she didn't go, "Oh yeah, but that's only Google." Because why the fuck would Google show you fallopian tubes being the wrong way up if they're showing you human human illustrations of what the body looks like, medical illustrations of what the body looks like? Why the fuck would they be showing them up pointing upwards when we all knew they were pointed downwards? Anyway, we went off that, had a look at something else, and she wanted to go and have a look at the fallopian tubes again because she was so absolutely mind blown by it. And we went on the same diagram, and then there was a flash on the screen, and then the fallopian tubes were pointing down again. So they saw it flip-flop in real time. But that is Google. Why would the inside of the human body not show you what the inside of the human body looks like? I'm not misremembering. where my fallopian tubes are, and what direction they're headed in. Do you know what I mean? I'm a woman. We don't forget that kind of thing. It's not normal to forget what your fallopian tubes look like. It's very important to us. It's the whole point of being a woman of them fallopian tubes. Well, they are for many years. For me, not so much now. That's another story entirely. But that was those girls seeing the internet change, reality in real time, right there in front of their eyes. They were just couldn't believe it. And I said, "Oh yeah," because I was quite blasé about it. I went, "Oh yeah, that's a flip flop. That's what that is. It does it all the time. It does it all the time," which indeed it does. So, why would Google tell you different things? Why would Google tell you in your reality something different to telling me what it's telling me in my reality? Because that also happens. Google will tell you in your reality something, and it'll tell me in my reality something completely different. But we're able to show each other that that information and share that information right there, right here on any what's the word, on any social media, any part of the web. This is much more than just some social thing. It's interdimensional. It's interdimensional. It crosses between realities, and we are able to share and show each other our proof of what reality we're living in at any present time, as opposed to what each other are living in. So I can show you my reality of something that we all understand. One of the first ones for me, and I got really obsessed with it, was Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore changed. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Because that's carved in stone, man. These are people carved in stone, and it changed. And somebody else, because I'd seen this on a group on Facebook. They were showing me their reality, and I went straight off and had a look at mine. And mine looked the same as it always had. So I posted my reality. So there we've got two separate realities from Google on the internet, side by side. So that was one of that. I think that's really when quite early on I realized that we weren't in the same reality at the same time. And because I knew that reality was changing, I accepted that. That was perfectly acceptable because, well, you're showing me your reality now. And then over time, sometime later, because I used to go back and just check on it. Do you know what I mean? One of the things, it was never finished in my old reality, whereas now it was finished in the middle of the Second World War. In the reality that I've just been in. I haven't checked it for some time. It might have changed again. But in my old reality, it was unfinished. Then it changed to a reality where it was finished. And I could see it while mine still was unfinished. And then my reality changed to the finished one. Also, I was showing something that was going on with Britain, and somebody said, "Oh, bloody hell, doesn't Britain look really weird with the top off, with the top on, rather?" Because she was in a reality that I'm in now, where Britain doesn't have the top bit anymore. It's cut off. Now it looks like a face turning to the east with a Mohican, is what it looks like now. Didn't look like that before in my reality. But there she is telling me that she's finding it weird that Britain has got its top on. So I was aware that we were having different realities at the same time, and we could show each other proof on the internet. This World Wide Web is an interdimensional World Wide Web. It's not just worldwide, is it? It's interdimensional. And when Google are with Lockheed Martin, I think it is, are in cahoots with quantum computers, I do believe that quantum computers do have something to do with it. I don't think it's the cause of it. I think that this is normal and natural, and it's happened before. I think that we are, I wouldn't go as far as to say special and chosen, because that, I don't like those terms, but we are able to, being affected, to me, the reason why I'm so calm about it is because we're not actually being physically harmed. Reality has been changing for me since I was 16, and I haven't been harmed by it. But what the Mandela Effect does to most of us is it gives us that strong spiritual connection to our creator. it brought, I'm not saying that I'm a Christian in as much as I was before when I was first born again, because this has got nothing to do with being born again. This is not us, the chosen ones who have been born again, being taken away in the rapture. It isn't that. It's not exactly that. But this is the fifth time that this has happened. The people of old times talked about this, and the Hopi specifically talked about reality changing. But so many of the old peoples, the ancient peoples, were talking about when the next world comes. And it's not just the age of Aquarius in a wishy-washy kind of new hippie age kind of way. And believe me, I am, or have been in my past, a very wishy-washy hippie type person. But it's not about that. It's about it really being real, because we are not what we've been told we are. The earth is not what we've been told it is. Reality is not what we've been told it is. Humanity is something that we experience as spiritual beings, and we who are Mandela affected know that. It's not a belief, it's a knowing. We've been given our proof, because you can't see the Bible's words change in front of your own Bible at home, that some people have had family Bible for over 100 years, changing words in there that shouldn't be in there. And we're not misremembering. Why would we misremember wineskins? Why are we all misremembering the word wineskins? Why were we all misremembering the word trespasses? You know, why are we all misremembering the fact that South America is now east and he's taking over a quarter of the fucking globe? And I'm saying globe like that because I don't even bloody think there is a globe anymore. I'm not sure what we are, but it's flat. It's a plane. I don't know whether we're moving anywhere. I don't know any of those big questions. I don't know the answer to any of them. I don't pretend to. I don't try and force anybody to believe what I believe. And I'm not talking about the Mandela effect believing, because I believe in other things. But the Mandela effect isn't something to believe in. It's something that happens to us. And we live with the consequences of what that means. Reality changing in front of our eyes. People I don't understand are people like your physicists, your quantum physicists. Why aren't they getting excited by the Mandela effect? Why aren't priests, pastors, vicars getting excited by the Mandela effect? Because it's all been, what's the word? Prophesied and written about. It was carved onto stone in the middle of America 5,000 years ago. The very story that we know from the Bible. 5,000 years ago, it's carved into stone. So no, we aren't devil worshippers. We aren't trying to force anybody to believe what we believe. What we do is point out our lives to each other and the changes that we see. And because we see reality changing, don't you think that we have a right to just talk to each other about what we're experiencing without our souls telling us and making hit pieces about how we're devil worshippers? You know, and this quantum of this cult of quantum. The cult, most of us don't even believe, don't even believe it's a quantum thing at all. I mean, quantum physics, all we know is that all we know from quantum physics is that anything is possible. And we have the proof of that. We have the proof that everything's possible. And yet the scientific community and the religious community still will not accept that it's here. And I watched, I will catch up with it again. I started to watch Brian with Nathan Saunders interview, and Nathan was saying exactly the same thing. You know, he said it perfectly, to be honest. It's not something that we want to happen. It's something that happens to us. It's something that we are experiencing, and it isn't something that we can just push to one side. We know that we are a spiritual essence having a human experience. Only right now it's gone beyond a human experience. We're just in a human body while going through these reality changes, but it's made us all. And like he said, it's given us that knowing, not a belief. We don't believe in the Mandela effect. We don't believe in God. We know, but it doesn't mean that it's easy to live with. It doesn't mean that we can just, that changes that are happening right in front of you. I mean, literally, I do know of people that have literally walked out of the house, come back, and the door is orientated in a different way on their house. That kind of stuff. I mean, I'm totally trolled by the American flag of all things. You wouldn't have thought it, would you? But I am. It seems to be all the time with that bloody stupid white line underneath it. We haven't all misremembered. I'm British. You would have thought, how do I know about it? Well, we all see the American flag all the time because most of the world stuff, the Western world stuff, is movies American based. America has been a big part of the world of the world's entertainment, and the American flag is everywhere. So I know fine well that flag had a red line underneath it for blood, apparently. I only learned that after the fact by hearing other people, Americans, talk about it, but I was well aware it had a red line underneath it. In fact, where the red line now ends looks wrong. It just looks completely wrong. So I've been trolled by the red line, and I get excited when I see it. I get excited whenever I see that residue of my old reality. But to say that, to go people, I can understand why people make a video to say about, oh, have you heard about this thing? What do you think? Don't have a problem with that. There's this thing called the Mandela Effect, and here are some of the examples. I haven't got a problem with that. That isn't a bad thing, as long as they're not saying, but it's all really memory loss. If they just here's some Mandela effects, isn't this weird? Haven't got a problem with that at all. I'm not saying that. They're not trying to push an agenda one way or the other, and neither are we. We just need to be able to talk to each other openly about the things that we're experiencing. And thankfully, this internet that we connect through is multi-reality. It is multi-dimensional, where timelines and our differences don't matter. We can communicate in real time, and we can show each other examples of our own reality, which is totally different from each other in real time. So we need to speak to each other. This is what we do this for. I mean, I started off because I needed to get it out of my system, because we can't talk to people that aren't affected. Even the people that see changes that aren't affected by it, you can't have a conversation, because they'll go, oh, yeah. Like my friend with the macaroons, when she went online, and sure enough, there's Google telling her macarons. So she accepts that the Mandela effect is a real thing, but isn't affected by it. She can then just shrug it off, get on with her life. Whereas for me, I'm being trolled by macarons. The being affected by it is not, especially at first. I mean, nobody wants to be affected by reality changing, even though it was I used to think, before I realized that, before I knew reality was changing at all, that I would never know the answers to all the questions. And oddly enough, it's through the Mandela effect that I've had added extra information to make a picture about something I've personally been interested in, ancient Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe wasn't a bloody thing in my reality. We hadn't discovered Göbekli Tepe in my reality, and yet Göbekli Tepe has been something that in this reality for about 10 years people have known about Göbekli Tepe. A long time, a lot longer than I thought anyway, because Göbekli Tepe is a blended reality to me. And I used to, keep in touch with the things that people are finding with ancient history sites and things, because it was a passion of mine. And the Mandela effect have used my passions. And in fact, I think I've been guided towards quite a lot of them, to be honest, in ways that I never thought. But I'm being shown these things because of my passions. I know they've changed, because they're my passions. They're things that I've investigated. And Göbekli Tepe has put our civilization, in inverted commas, used to be up to 6,000 years ago. Göbekli Tepe takes it up to 11. and we've now found another place that takes it to 12. Whereas before, we thought that civilization started 6,000 years ago in Samaria. I mean, we didn't talk about what the Sumerians actually believed in, obviously, because, you know, history, the people that run the world don't want us to know about that. And if they did talk about it at all, it was always in a foolish ancient people. Yet it's because of the Mandela effect that I have extra added information to the things that were, that I'd kind of got no more answers. The Mayans, for instance, I waited 18 years for 2012 to happen, and I researched the magnetic life of the sun, and it takes the time of the Mayans' long count calendar is the exact magnetic cycle of the sun. It has 4 magnetic poles, the sun, and it takes the time of the long calendar that 2012 was taken from, directly related to the sun. Now, and I thought it was about sunspots and coronal mass ejections is what I thought it was going to be about. But then the Mandela effect gave me added information, where in fact they didn't say that. In this new reality, it's given me the other information that I wished I'd had at the time, which actually said that we would be moving to a new world, that it was the end of the old world and the beginning of the new, not the end of the world. It didn't have that extra bit, the beginning of the new. And as far as the sun was concerned, it was about them waiting for their new sun. The long count calendar was a time, it wasn't only the magnetic cycle of our sun, our beautiful golden sun in the middle of the afternoon, which I miss so much. This white sun that we have now was predicted by the Mayans, but I didn't know that information because my old reality, where I originally, or thought I originally came from, it didn't say that. So the Mandela effect has given me extra information, extra answers to the life and the information and the reality that I was living in before these before these changes 2014 2015 happened. One of my very first changes that I remember seeing this time round was McDonald's, because McDonald's used to be red. All of the McDonald's used to be red, and then they went green suddenly, and all the McDonald's were green, but without any painting of it. And if you look online, McDonald's, they're all painted green. All around the world, they're all painted green, but with no actual when did it happen. So if you can find when it said, if when they changed the colour from red to green, all of them painted that way, please let me know. I haven't forgotten that. I protested outside McDonald's many times, trying to get people not to eat McDonald's. So you can't tell me that and it's McDonald's, MAC, like Big Mac, McDonald's. It was McDonald's for me, not McDonald's, Mac. So, but I remember somebody actually saying to me, it's McDonald's on a feed where I'd actually put up to, I'd actually posted for me to, me outside protesting outside McDonald's. I'd written McDonald's, and in the thing that you write above your picture, I'd written McDonald's. To this day, it still says McDonald's that I'd wrote, because that's what it was spelled like back in the day. Back in the day when reality was stable and nothing changed. But in fact, it has been doing for some considerable time. It has been. And the Mandela effect has given me that extra information through my own interests. It's given me extra information, which is, I'd never even heard of the Hopi before. I'd studied ancient civilizations, and I'd never heard about the Hopi. I'd heard about them, but not about the prophecies and things. That came to me, that was shown to me by the Mandela effect after praying for information. I said, I need some answers. Please help me. God, please help me. I want you to show me what you want me to see. And he gave me the story of the red and blue kachina first, which that prophecy explains reality changing as we see in it today from our own bodies. It says from our own bodies to every insect on the planet will be given the chance to change, to upgrade. We're being upgraded. We're being upgraded. We're not in the same body as we were. we're not in that, we're not in the same body as we were. And I can now say that, and it sounds quite blasé, but we're not. That's a fact. I don't believe it. It's a fact. So being affected affects us on so many, 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 many levels. And we personally don't give a shit whether you believe in the Mandela effect or not. We don't give a shit if you think that we are misremembering. Why are you even bothered about what we're going through? We're trying to explain to each other, and for new people that are finding out about it, because people must be waking up to it all the time around the world. And they go online and they need to connect or find out what's going on and connect to other people that are going through the same thing. Because living with reality changing it's not easy. None of us have chosen it. It chose us. And it isn't because we worship the devil or because we've been pagans, because this thing is not a Christian thing. It's a reality thing. It's a creation thing. It's a God thing. It's not something that we just make up. It's something that's real. And we feel much better being able to talk to each other. So if, it's not, I cannot stress how wrong these people are when they say that we probably, I was going to say we probably know God more than they do. And I shouldn't really say that. That's wrong of me, really. But in a way, we do. I was a born again Christian in the past, and then I left because I could see hypocrisy. And then when I learned about how we got to have Christmas on Christmas Day, when actually it's a sun god. It comes from a Roman celebration that they already did, and we know fine well that they do that. The Romans went around taking all the pagan places and all the pagan festivals and plonked Christianity on top of it. Jesus was not born on the 25th of December. The 25th of December is a pagan holiday of the sun god. But yet people will go on and on and on and on and on about Christianity. Now, I had a problem with that. So it made me not know what to believe anymore because it's been so manipulated. The Council of Nicaea in the 300s AD. What the fuck? They messed about and changed things. The Roman Empire went from the Roman Empire to the Roman Catholic Church and spread Christianity that they made up. They decided what was going to be in and out of the Bible. So I already knew that this had been manipulated by men. And you can't tell me that those men were guided by God, because they weren't. Why would God guide them to put Jesus's birthday on an already pagan festival about a sun god? He wouldn't. So I had all this in my head, and it was only through being shown after praying, the Hopi prophecy came to me in increments. And as the increments came, my understanding grew more. And then eventually, when I was shown the whole of the prophecy about the tablet being given to, there are 4 tablets, not just Moses' tablet. There are 4 tablets around the world. Moses was given one of them. The Hopi, not just the Hopi, but the Indians, I'm sorry, that's so bad of me. The Native Americans were given their own tablet, and in end times we're supposed to put them together. That's what they believe. But on their prophecy stone is carved in stone in America exactly what it says is going to happen at end times in the Bible, in Revelation. But it's carved on stone in the middle of America from 5,000 years ago. So that's when Jesus came to me and he said, I am the beginning, I am the Alpha, I am the Omega, I am beyond and in all things, just trust. And I felt peace more than I had done for many. It didn't bother me anymore that I knew that things had been twisted and manipulated, and we'd been told a lie. Even about our own religion was built on lies and manipulation. And Jesus came along and he just said, I like this story. I used to say it before, I used to say it all the time. Before anything was written down about God, before God showed himself to us as a species, before he showed himself to us, he created things. He'd already created things. And we, as human beings, were searching for him. We've always been searching for him. That's why we have this need. We're hardwired for religion. We have centers in our brain for religion. Now, I believed when I was first a born again Christian, I believed I was 16 and I went to a very charismatic, happy, clappy, wonderful church with a massive youth group full of well over 160 people. Went off to Bible weekends, had the most amazing time, loved Jesus with all my heart, found out that it was full of hypocrites, and then lost it all for many, many years. And it's the Mandela Effect that's brought me back to Jesus and brought me back to my creator. So this is what pisses me off about idiots making hit pieces saying about how we're all devil worshippers. I mean, you just know nothing. You're not even prepared to listen to us. You have people going on all the time. Come on, debate me, debate me. I'd love to debate you, but you don't debate. You just call names. I mean, people start off by calling names. You can't put out hit pieces and then say debate me. You're not up for a debate. You're trying to. I don't have to prove to anybody that reality's changing. It's not my job to prove to anybody that reality's changing. I don't have to prove to you as a debunker that reality actually is changing. I choose not to. But it's the mentality of those people that I don't get, that they spend time, waste time belittling what we go through. Belittling what we go through. Why? Because it isn't happening to you. There's nothing to be jealous of. It's hard to live with. I'm not saying I'm special. Well, I'm a bit special, but not in that, only in a help me kind of way. There's nothing amazing and special and chosen about me. Not in that kind of way. I never proclaim there is. Most of us are quite humble people. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're all arseholes from time to time. We are human after all. But we're more than just human. All of us. Whether you're a debunker or whether you're a debunker, you can't debunk. You can't debunk somebody else's reality. That's just bollocks. But if you're prepared to take time out of your life to make hit pieces on what people are going through, it's not a belief. It's what I'm living through. It's what I live every day. It's not a belief. It's got nothing to do with the devil. It's made me cling. The only thing I actually believe in and care and trust is God. It has brought me back to God in a way that I never thought possible. I thought I'd left. I always felt bad because it took me 10 years to get over being a born again Christian. It took me 10 years to stop fearing Satan, to stop fearing that I was going to hell, because I knew that everything had been manipulated and how it had been. And so this religion of Christianity meant nothing to me. And now I wouldn't class myself as a Christian, because Christianity means the earth-based taught wrong Christianity. And I don't mean the Bible. Although the Bible is, if the Bible, put it this way, the Bible actually in the Gospels, the Bible quotes Enoch, but the book of Enoch was left out of the Bible. Enoch being Noah's grandfather. But some men decided that they didn't like the message that Enoch was saying, so they left it out. They decided what God wanted, not what God wanted. So I spent the rest of my time searching and knowing there was something more, believing in God, but not understanding my way to him. The Mandela Effect wiped all of that away, because I prayed. I started praying again, and God, putting everything in God's hands. He was giving me answers on incremental basis. And when push comes to shove, on the Hopi prophecy stone is revelation. It's what happens in Revelation, carved in the stone 5,000 years ago, way before any bits of the Bible were written down. But the reason that some people don't understand that the reason we talk about the King James Bible and not just any old Bible is because there are many, many Bibles with different translations. A speck in the eye becomes a plank in the eye, that kind of thing. There are many translations, but we use the King James Version when we talk about Bible changes, because that is unchanging, the same words for hundreds of years, but they're no longer the same words. They're no longer the same words. So that Bible has been corrupted even more to us now than it was in my original timeline. And it's become an abomination, to the Bible that I knew before. And that Bible had been manipulated. Things were left out, and people, like I said, in the Gospels, they quote Enoch, the book of Enoch. They quote what Enoch said, but there's no reference to where it came from. It's just, it sounds like it's coming out of their mouths. And don't get me wrong, if you are a happy Christian, happy with your religion, then I have no problem with that. My daughter is a born-again Christian. She's at theology university doing a theology degree right now. I don't talk to her about the Mandela Effect, because I used to not talk to her about it because I was frightened in case she had her old Bible and I did. I still don't understand why she doesn't talk about Bible changes, because she still really reads her Bible. And she's got many of them and goes really deep into it. Whereas I know about the Bible because my sister and I used to look from my King James Bible, and she used to look from my Good News Bible, and we would compare how it sounded. So I'm very well aware when Bible changes happen. You don't have to be a pastor. The amount of people have gone, I've been a pastor for 30 years and I know my Bible. That's arrogance beyond belief. You don't have to be a pastor to know what your Bible is. And so even though I knew that Bible had been manipulated by man and wasn't exactly what we should be seeing, because I knew that it wasn't exactly what we should be seeing, the changes to that Bible are so vile that I don't know how anybody can think that that's normal. Some of the words in there are unbelievable. Couch, bottles. There were no bottles. Bottles 2,000 years ago. All them glass blowers, we were well-known glass blowers in Jerusalem, weren't there? Do you know what I mean? It's like, what? And yet there it is in scripture now. Unicorns. No, it doesn't mean rhinoceros. It has said rhinoceros, not unicorn. So this is what gets to me about these sort of people do not even consider what it's like to be affected. They're that busy trying to disrespect us and use us for their own purposes, which I just don't get. I do understand somebody who's got a channel saying, oh, I've heard about this Mandela Effect, I've had a look into it, I'm going to put it up to my viewers and see what they have to say. With an open mind, no problem. Ask us questions, but don't tell us we're wrong. We understand that what your reality might not be my reality. Those people don't understand that. They aren't even prepared to try and listen to what it is that we're really saying and what it is that we're really going through. So, it's just, debunkers can kiss my fat white arse, because they are, what a waste of their energy, what a waste of their time. When we speak to each other, when we make videos, we're trying to inform each other. and anybody that comes along who needs help and information because they can see that reality is changing. And Vanessa VA, she found me. She was the one who actually first found my very first coming out video, shall we say. And I was not in a good way. I was not in a good way because I'd been seeing Mandela Effect. I've been seeing Mandela effects actually online on Facebook for some time. I saw the scarecrow with the gun years ago. But managed to go, the scarecrow never had a gun in the Wizard of Oz. Where's that come from? And ignored it. But then when I watched it myself and found that the whole bloody film is not what it used to be, it's like that these Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is not what it used to be. It's a disjointed, wrong film. It's freaky and scary right now. It's nothing like the film it used to be. They don't even sing hi ho, it's off to work we go anymore. They don't sing that. They sing it's home from work we go, but not off to work. They don't sing that anymore. It's disjointed, it's wrong, and never mind mirror, mirror. Never mind mirror, mirror. And fly my pretties. You know, these things these are our childhood films, they're our childhood memories, and you don't tell me that I have misremembered my childhood memories. Fuck you. Don't you dare tell me that I'm worshipping the devil. Fuck you. You want to go and have a look in the mirror and put your own self straight first before you start criticizing me and other people for what they go through. It's none of your business what I believe to be going on in my life, whether I believe in my arse is going to be blue tomorrow, or whatever it is I'm talking about on whatever subject. If you don't agree with it, fair fucks to you, mate. Don't agree with it. But don't be wasting time and effort to debunk something you can't debunk, because you can't debunk somebody's reality, you dick. It's as simple as that. Think about what it is we are going through, and then maybe one of us will actually have a debate. But I'm not debating anything with somebody that is making hit pieces and calling us all crazy and idiots. I mean, it's not a good place to start, is it? That's not a debate. That's you disrespecting and name calling. And if the first thing that you've got to do is start calling names, you've lost your argument. Anyway, you haven't got an argument. There is no debate, is there? So, understanding those of us who are actually affected, we need each other and we need to get it out of our systems, and we need to talk to each other. Like on the chat right now, there's lots of different people all talking amongst each other while I'm waffling on. I mean, I could quite easily and happily turn me off talking and go away and let people continue to talk, because that's how important connection with each other is. We're not in a little cult all by us, in a little cult excluding everybody else. Quite frankly, we don't even want to. We should never have actually known each other. Do you know? We should never have actually known each other, but because we're going through the same thing, which is the most mind-blowing, mind-bending, wow moment since the last time reality changed, which was about 6,000 years ago. Round about 6,000 years ago was when reality last changed. And when you're talking about, they're talking about the Bible. I mean, Nibiru is just wormwood. It's just got a different name. And Nibiru is, I believe, is the red kachina. The hope is red kachina. The Bible talks about the sky turning red. The moon will turn red and the sky will be blood red, right? The Hopi kachina talks about the red kachina, the destroyer that comes, and it poisons the water, and we can't eat and we can't drink. It's the same thing by a different name. It's the same thing by a different name. And I think if you look back through all our ancient civilizations, you'll find that this is so. Basically, this is the ancient civilizations knew about this time, the biblical end times. That's what we're in, biblical end times. And so far, Revelation hasn't changed. I don't think. I wonder whether any of you have seen any changes within Revelation, because so far I haven't noticed any. Doesn't mean that it hasn't happened, but so far everything that we're going through now is it's like comparable to what it says about end times in the Bible, and what end times have been prophesied by many ancient cultures, and we're going through it right this minute. So instead of waffling on about how we're wrong, we're devil worshippers and we need debunking, those sort of people should actually be saying, oh my God, we actually are in end times. I better look to my own life and sort myself out. You know, don't be worrying about what other people are doing. Now is the time to get your own life right. You know, your own self right. You've got to get yourself right with God. Do you really think that God wants you to be disrespecting people? Like I said, if you don't believe what I'm saying, fair fucks to you. Fair fucks to you if you don't believe what I'm saying. I don't give a shit whether you believe what I'm saying or not, because my reality is changing, whether you say it is or not. So I don't care whether you believe it, but I do care that you laugh openly. People laugh openly at us. I mean, and say how we're mentally ill, how we're misremembering, quite frankly, is one of the nicer things that's said about us, to be fair. It's one of the nicer things. Misremembering is quite nice in comparison to some of the things that have been said about us. But I think it comes from small dick syndrome, because quite frankly, there aren't an awful lot of women that are, in inverted commas, debunking. They all seem to be sad little men hiding behind their computer, hiding behind their computer with the anonymity of some false name. Now, I'm called Reality Sliders Mandela Affected on here, because it's reality sliders, meaning all of us, anybody that finds me that's affected, I'm talking to you. We're connected. That's what my name here on my channel says. But I'm open about who I am. Totally open about who I am. I start off with, hello, lovely people. My name is Ashley. My name's Ashley Shaw. I'm all over the internet. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to hide who I am. I don't, whatever I say because I mean it. I say it because I mean it. And I always put my face to what I say. I don't hide behind pathetic little profiles being sad. I don't. Too many people do that. So those of us who are affected, we know exactly what it's like to be affected, and we understand totally why we need to speak to each other, which is why I'm quite happy to go off here and let you lot carry on chatting. But people who are so-called debunking, you're not debunking anything, you're just making yourselves look like idiots. And I mean, in some cases, you're actually going out of your way to shut us down because you're that insecure. If you're that insecure in your own beliefs, in your own reality, that you have to knock somebody else's, that is a sure sign that you need some personal working on. Because believe me, the majority of us, if not all of us that are Mandela affected, are spending an awful lot of our time trying to better ourselves, trying to not be so much in the world. I mean, I get tempted all the time by all kinds of things, and like trying to bat all that off and live a life that if I die today, right now, in 5 minutes, I'm never ready for meeting my creator. I'm never worthy enough to meet my creator. So don't you dare tell people that I'm a devil worshipping pagan, because I must admit, I did used to read tarot cards. I've got no problem with saying that. And I did used to think I was a pagan. But actually, I only ever believed in one God, one creator. And what it did for me, paganism, so-called paganism, is it got me back in touch with nature, with our Mother Earth. With our Mother Earth, I learned what all trees were. I didn't worship the tree. You see, this is another thing that gets to me. People really don't understand what being a pagan is. We're not devil worshipping. Fucking devil worshipping. We're getting back to nature. We're living with the season changing, trying to live a more natural type of life. You know, that's what modern paganism is. It's trying to be in connection with nature. And if you are in a bad state of affairs, if you aren't spiritually connected yourself enough to not give a shit about what other people think and believe, then that's sad for you. It's a very sad state of affairs, because I don't ever feel, I don't ever feel that comfortable with what's going on in my life, and that my creator's going to go, oh, welcome in, Ash, you're just bloody marvelous, you are. You know, I don't feel worthy enough for God. I don't feel worthy enough. I know he loves me. I know that without a doubt, because I'm Mandela affected. It brought me back to my connection, my actual personal connection to my creator. And that is something that, even, you know, like the Hopi in their Red and Kachina prophecy, they say that if you aren't grounded spiritually, and that means also to your Mother Earth, you aren't going to survive the coming catastrophe, the coming end time. And quite frankly, if you think that I watched something years ago, and it was about end times, and it was about the rapture, and I was about 15 when I watched it, and it scared the living shit out of me, because it actually said that priests wouldn't be raptured, that priests wouldn't be raptured. Vicars, pastors, vicars, priests, religious men would not be raptured. Now, that you know, as a 15, 16-year-old, that really blew my mind. How can they not be raptured? Those people think that just because you've given your life to Jesus, you're saved, right? If you are that confident that no matter what, you're good enough, that no matter what, you are good enough to be saved, then for me personally, I have a problem with anybody who thinks that I'm all right, Jack, I'm going to be saved, fuck you. When it all hits the fan, fuck the rest of the world. I can't bear that kind of thought. I can't bear the kind of thought where somebody thinks, oh, I've given my life to Jesus, so it doesn't really matter what I do, what I say. I'm not going to be judged. I'm just going straight to heaven. You're going to be judged. We're all going to be judged. And for me, if you feel that just as you are now, you're tickety-boo and you're right in there, to me, you're nowhere near ready to meet your maker. I'm not saying I'm anywhere near ready, because I'm not. And when I first realized that reality was changing, I spent a lot of time crying out to God. And I remember once I was actually having a bath. I mean, I used to talk to God quite a lot. Well, I still do when I'm in the bath. When I'm at my most vulnerable is when my heart comes out and I speak to God. And I remember crying for the nearly 8 billion of us on the planet, because we've been lied to and cheated, and the evil in this world is it's like a disease, it's like a cancer, it's spreading into everything, and we have been lied to. And I cried and I begged for my God, for the Lord, for the one creator, to please have mercy on all of us. So many of these people, these debunkers especially, are so, I'm saved, you're shit, you're a devil worshipper, you're going to hell, I'm not, sod the rest of the world, I don't care, because I'm saved, I've given my life to Jesus. That to me is not, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit well with me. That's not, to me, what Jesus was about. It's not what Jesus was about. He wants everybody to be saved. He wants to take everybody in his arms. He wants everybody to be reunited with up there with the creator. That's what the creator wants. So we try and live our lives as best we can, knowing for a certain fact that reality has changed, and it is changing on a daily, sometimes minute by minute basis, sometimes second by second basis. It is changing. Reality is changing. You cannot debunk it. but at least have some bloody empathy. Try and be a Christian. Try and be a Christian. Try and understand what it is we're going through. Try and see the reality of our lives instead of making it up as you go along out of disrespect and your own sad inadequacies with your own life. I mean, I don't hate you. Hate's a very big word, but you're not very likable and your motives are very questionable. Just go away, be quiet, leave people alone. You're the one that's pushing an agenda, not me, not other people that you've done hit pieces on. Just let us talk to each other and let people who need to know what it is they're going through, let them find actual genuine people that are affected, or at the very least find those videos that say, hey, have a look at this, guys, have you seen this weird shit? That's no problem. Ask us questions. Ask a question. Ask a question genuinely, not with some I'm going to whack you in the face with some arsehole reaction. Name calling, telling me that ignoring residue. They're not even prepared. You can say, right, this has happened, and they'll say, no, it doesn't. And you say, yes, it does. I'll show you. And you give them the proof, and they go, well, don't need to see the proof. Don't need to see what you're showing me. Huh? I'm all up for debate, me. I'm all up for debate. But I'm Mandela affected. It's part of my every minute, every second of my life. It happened to me and to many other people around the world. It's not a Christian thing. It's happening across religions, colours, country borders. We just have to be spiritual beings on this plane being affected. It's got nothing to do with Christianity. It's got to do with everything. And anybody that, most people, in fact, I know there are people that I think it's CERN, but in reality, none of us know. We just believe that God has our backs, that God is in control of it all. That's what we believe. We know reality's changing. That isn't a belief. We had our proof. People are saying, oh, until I see it with my own eyes. Well, we have seen it with our own eyes. We're not misremembering. I haven't misremembered an old building suddenly being lived in. I haven't misremembered the fact that my fallopian tubes were down. I haven't misremembered anything. Don't get me wrong. I do misremember. Of course I do. I forget shit. I'm a middle-aged woman. Of course I forget shit. But these are anchor memories about things that mean something to us. That's why most of us know, because it happens with things that we understand, our passions, the things that we are interested in. I've always been interested in ancient Egypt, and then suddenly the configuration of the pyramids changed. I'm not going to not notice that. I noticed. Because I'm affected. I see reality change. You can't debunk it. Give up trying to debunk it. And understand that reality is something that none of us have control over. It has control over us. It comes from God. It's a natural thing. It's in God's hands. It's all planned, whatever it is. I mean, I know we're moving to ever more evil, hate-filled shit worlds, but the end outcome is going to be what God planned all along. And we, as Mandela affected people, trust that. It's the only thing we can trust, which is what makes you and your ridiculous accusations about being devil worshippers just, it's such a nonsense. Such a nonsense that I don't even know why you're wasting your time with it. Don't believe in it. Fair folks, love. Fair folks, but leave the rest of us alone. Well, that's Brian was just saying, at this rate, the entire reality will be written over within a decade. I agree, Brian. I mean, it is really, really speeding up. The changes are coming in thick and fast at the minute. They really are. You can't keep up with it. Flip-flopping, different changes, reality changing, history changing, buildings changing, but history changing. That's crazy, fucked up shit. Anyway, lovely people, I've been on here for 1 hour and 44 minutes, so I feel better for having got that off my chest. And I will leave this on I'm going to leave this on for about another hour, I think, and let you guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to turn the mic off. I may come back at some point, I might not, but you guys, I know how much you need to talk to each other, so I'm just going to leave it on for a short while, go and make myself coffee. I may or may not be back. Well, I will be back anyway at some point to tell you I'm ending it. I'm not just going to end it on you without saying anything. So till next time, my lovelies, my love to you all.